Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Proof here. We are joined today by a Platinum 3, is that right? Platinum 3 Draven player, Go B. And he will be joining us today and answering some questions on how to play Draven, and possibly you can reach higher elo if you listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about. Just for an example, I'll show you his stats in the video. But besides that, let's get right into the questions right now. So starting us off with a couple of tips, what would you say one of the main one is for a starting Draven player?
I think it's don't give up. You just gotta put a lot of play time into it. He's less of a just, a lot of champions you like learn combos on and whatever. But Draven is more of the, you will just learn him over time. Gotta know your limits in lane. I think that's just the most important one. There isn't, playing aggressive, you have to really get the hang of it.
So number one thing you're saying is to play aggressive and get the hang of Draven, meaning limit testing, right? Limit testing with Draven, that's number one.
That's very important.
What would your second advice be?
I think if you're already like a ADC player who plays a lot, you have to change your play style a lot. You can't just play the same, because if you play the same as pretty much any other ADC, aside from, very few early game, you will pretty much just fall off the game and just become useless. Not useless, but very much less useful late game. You have to use that early game a lot. I think that's for a lot of ADC players. They try Draven, but they play him like classic ADC, where it's just farm.
Yeah, so just they don't play aggressive. They just farm up with Draven.
You have to play it like early game assassin, etc. And also take a lot of early skirmishes, especially Drake. You want to fight for that Drake. You don't have to force in lane. You can just push for Drake. And if they give you free Drakes, that's just, that's the game, right?
Two so far very solid tips, Gobi. What would you say learning against different matchups? Would you give any tips around that? What's Draven's weakest matchups in League of Legends right now?
I think the matchups, it's very less of the ADC. It's very much of the support, because as Draven, you're the easiest to predict ADC, as all your axes, they land and you're probably gonna pick them up, right? So the enemy knows to just aim their spell, whatever, where your stun is going, your axe is going. Yeah. So any supports that have somewhat hard to hit CC, and they can just aim it where your axe is going.
It's basically a weakness for Draven. Like the opponents know where you're gonna go. Basically, it's like knowing where you're gonna go, and they can target there for their CC. Like example, Blitzcrank would you say is a hard matchup for Draven?
I think he's in between there. I think much harder would be something like Leona, that can has a very easy, can hit over the minions and just stun you. Yeah, that one is very hard for. And also I think Swain is pretty hard, because his E can just aim it straight where your axe is going.
So what would you give advice in order to combat your counters? I think you mentioned something about keeping in mind the cooldowns of these champions.
I think the cooldowns are very important. Whenever you are against someone you don't know how exactly long the cooldown is, you can just Google it. For example, I think what I did was I went on a MOBA Fire, and on there it shows the champs, all the skills, and how long the cooldown is. So
going into tip number 4, what's one thing that you would suggest to low elo players who are, let's say, have been playing Draven for a long time, but haven't been ranking up or haven't been seeing results?
It's very important to get a duo, especially someone who plays a lot of engage, very strong with them. You can also, it's very hard, but with your teammates, if you get ahead and you push the tower, you don't really want to stay bot lane, you don't want to go too deep, as you probably have a shutdown. But what you sometimes can and sometimes can't, depending on your teammates, how they are. You can swap with mid or top, depending on how easy the tower will get, how easy it is to get the tower, and you can just keep pushing, because they're gonna have to, match you.
So I guess that's a very valid point, finding a duo that you can play with and then swapping lanes in order to provide more pressure, because as I know it, AD carries usually after maybe having some priority bot lane, they can swap top to get the turret top lane and get some more plates that way. Tip number 5, what itemization do you recommend for players playing Draven?
Oh, Draven has a lot. He can either go lethality or crit, or a mix of both. I think mix of both is very strong, especially Collector right now. Collector is very meta. But you could go Duskblade, Eclipse, Gale Force, Shield Bow. It all depends, right? But if you're not too ahead and not too behind, I think Duskblade is pretty much the strongest. Eclipse is not as good as anymore, because you could just go Duskblade and a Vamp Scepter, and it's pretty much the same as Duskblade has. I think sometimes more damage than Eclipse. Depends if they're more tanky.
For players who are wondering if Draven is an early gamer, snowballer, or more of a comeback champion, what would you say Draven shines, and to what playstyle players should adjust?
I mean, he has a very aggressive, of course, but he can actually come back quite well if you just never die, because your stacks, your passive stacks, will slowly go up. I've been up in the, I think like 400, something like that, and you will become very big. Because if you can get a kill, you've just been farming for like all the early game, and just both, it's very hard to get to the enemy, or your support is not a good matchup. You can just farm, catch a lot of access, and your passive will go up to, let's say, like 400, and when you get a kill, you can it's pretty much a bounty of 800 gold.
800 gold, which can bring you back into the game. And that's what Draven players can do, and work on not giving up basically during the match, seeing if you're down on kills, if you're down on CS. You know, you heard it here first. Don't give up on farming. It might actually build your stacks up, your passive, and that could actually give a nice return on your patience and not giving up in the game. And lastly, you have any last words you want to give, some inspiration to any players? Doesn't matter, AD carry, Draven, or anything like that.
I think a lot of just grinding, especially getting duo who plays a lot at the same time as you, and just being very good at synchronizing with your team. And also, like, I would never, a lot of people say turn off chat. I think more just mute whenever someone is toxic, and never really respond to messages. Don't ping your teammates, question mark.
That's
a lot of tilt.
So basically, if you just follow these tips that you've said, you possibly have a very good shot at reaching Platinum 3. You heard it here. Gobi, thank you for joining me on this interview. I hope I hear from you again, maybe on your Jhin. Maybe you can comment some tips on that next time. But thank you for your time, Gobi. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So guys, that will conclude today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. Remember to leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more content in the future. In the meantime, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.